Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Joffrey Noodle Legs here today in our Indicator Film Week. We've looked at the Odessa File with John Voight, and now we're looking at a Hammer horror film called The Gorgon. Now this to me is one of the unsung classics of the Hammer studio. Doesn't really get talked about very much. This film stars Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, and we kind of start off with we see a young couple in the house, and he's painting her. She's sort of like half naked. We don't get to see that, of course, because this is a Hammer film, and they're talking away, and he's painting her, and she's asking him when's he gonna marry her, and all this, and he says, well, once I've settled all my debts and got a bit of money behind me, I'll get married to you and things like this. So that sort of disheartens her, and then she approaches him and tells him that she's pregnant. So he then sort of like in a state of shock says, well, I've got to go and speak to your father because I've got to get this done right, and stuff like this, obviously, because it's not the done thing back then. She's saying, don't go, he will kill you, and all this sort of kind of thing. So he then walks out the house, sort of in a strop, and sort of heads towards the woods area and heads off towards where her father lives. She then sort of pursues him, and she sort of also goes through the woods, sort of calling him and all this sort of thing, and the woods just progressively get darker and darker, and she sort of sees strange things. She sees like a crucifix in the middle of the woods, in like, I don't know what it's in. It almost looks like a bird table, and then we see like the sky going, the moon coming out, and then she looks up and she screams. She sees something, and then she turns away after the scream. And then when she turns back, she's got all these sort of like white dots all over her face. And then she screams again. And when the film sort of cuts away. And we cut to a mental institution. How many more mental institutions we're visiting? And this one is run by the doctor, played by Peter Cushing. And we catch up with him in his laboratory doing his tests and experiments and stuff. And this beautiful young ginger-haired woman comes in and says, the body's arrived and the police officer's here to speak to you. So he goes towards the study where the police officer's waiting, and the police officer's talking about the girl, thinking, you say, yeah, I think it's murder, it's not an accident. And they're talking about her boyfriend Bruno and stuff like that. They think he's the killer. And so the woman then brings the body through to show the doctor, and her hand drops out of the table she's on, and you can see it's made of stone, and she hits like another table and the finger drops off. And so it's a bit crazy. And so then the doctor has a look underneath the sheet at the body and pulls back the sheet, and we see that she is stone. So she's been turned, whatever it is, has turned her to stone. So the police, we didn't catch up with the police in the woods hunting. They're hunting for Bruno, the lad, because they still think he's the killer. I think the doctors kept it very hush-hush about her turning to stone, because it's not really reported. And the police are investigating through the woods looking for the lad, and then we see Bruno dead, hanging from the trees, hung himself. Or has he? We don't know at this stage. So he's hanging from the tree. It then cuts to a courtroom where they're obviously doing, like with the coroner, the sort of like outcome of what's happened. And we see various people giving evidence. First of all, we see the father of the young girl saying that yeah, she was pregnant and she was in love with the guy, unfortunately. And then Peter Cushing steps up and gives his evidence, and he's basically saying that she had all these sort of marks on her and sort of like puncture wounds, so she was killed. And then the father of the son gets up and says, look, don't believe any of this. It's all sort of like just all a cover up to make his son a scapegoat because he was innocent. He hadn't done nothing. So, and he says he will fight to clear his name. And then the sort of court ends, and it comes out of the sort of like court that the coroner suggests that she's been murdered. She'd been murdered by Bruno, and then he committed suicide. So that the father of the son was right. It was used as a scapegoat. We then cut back to Peter Cushing back at his house, and he gets visited by the father of Bruno, and he's come to ask him a few questions about, and he's really there to ask him his help. He says, you know, come on, help me prove that there's something going wrong here. And Pete Cushing denies it all straight away. He says, no, it's you know, I don't know what you're talking about, sort of thing. And then Bruno's father goes on over, talks to him. Do you know about the 3 Gorgons, and that this is one of the Gorgons? The other 2 are dead, and this is one of the Gorgons that's been there. And a Gorgon is pretty much a mythological creature, a woman that has like this sort of power and ability. If you stare her in the face, you turn to stone. I think she's got like hair like made of snakes and stuff like that. You know, like the Medusa. She was another Gorgon. So anyway, so he says that he's still going to go and try and find out what's actually happened. Peter Cushing warns him, said, look, don't do it. Don't, just leave town. He goes, I'm not leaving town till I find out what's happened. Then we join Bruno's father at his place, reading a book about the mythology of the Gorgons. And the local town folk sort of come and they smash his window and throw like a torch of fire through. And then they sort of break at his door, telling him to leave town, leave town. And then they start sort of hitting him. But just before it really sort of kicks off, the police turn up. And the police also give this guy a warning to leave town. You know, it's almost like they know what it is, but they're covering it up. And they don't want it to be sort of like known anywhere. A bit like American Werewolf in London. You know, in the local pub, when they all knew about the werewolf, but they didn't want anyone else to sort of know about it. It's that kind of thing. Anyway, so the father of Bruno then writes to another professor, who his other son is studying with, and this professor is played by Christopher Lee. And I think they're asking him to come along and help him investigate what's happening around that area and what's happened to Bruno. And that's all I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you anymore. Are they going to discover the Gorgon? Is Christopher Lee, Bruce Lee, I nearly called him. Oh dear. Christopher Lee going to be a help to him, or why is Peter Cushing and the townfolk covering this up? You need to watch it and find out and see what happens. What do I think of the Gorgon? Like I said, I think it's one of the underrated Hammer films because it's fantastic. It's an absolute amazing, gripping story. It's got that real sort of gothic style to it, which Hammer were famous for. The pluses of this edition, it looks stunning on Blu-ray. It's one of the best looking Hammer films I've seen in a long time. I've still got to do my Hammer week, haven't I? Or maybe I'll do that very short soon. And it's fantastic. The acting is stellar. You've got an amazing cast in the film. I'm sure the police officer in the film is a young version of the priest in The Omen. I'm sure it's the same guy. And Christopher Lee is fantastic, and Peter Cushing once again steals the show. It's absolutely amazing, and it looks really cool. The Gorgon looks amazing. Of course, I'm not going to show you this because I'm not going to show you. I want you to see it for yourself. Minuses, there isn't any. It's of its age, of course, you know, but it's still amazing today. I'm going to score this an amazing film and give it a 9 out of 10. Absolutely fantastic. Have any of you guys seen the Gorgon? If you have, let me know down below what you thought of it. I think it's so underrated. I mean, because I suppose, you know, everyone with the Hammer films, like the Draculas and the Frankensteins, and some of the obscure ones like To the Devil a Daughter and all this kind of thing, and this one seems to have been sort of pushed aside a little bit, like another favourite of mine, Frankenstein Created Woman. That's another one that I think doesn't get the praise it deserves. And this is a great monster flick. It's so cool. Yeah, it's a typical Hammer film where it's a little bit slow bone, a little bit, look, quite a lot of jibber jabber and stuff like that, and it takes a while before you sort of see the creature and stuff. But I like that because that's the build up, and I think that you're creating the atmosphere for the horror that's good to turn up, and it's amazing. The Gorgon. 9 out of 10. Guys, check it out if you've not seen it. And that's my review of my second Indicator film this week. We've got one more to do, I think. Let's have a look, see if I've got it here, which one I'm going to be doing. Yeah, and it's another Hammer film. This one's a little bit different. You may remember in my pickup video, it's Never Take Sweets from a Stranger. We're going to be looking at that one next, okay? So that's something completely different. So that will be my next and final review on the Indicator week. Guys, check out some horror channels for me before my next film. Check out the Horror Hands, Horror Geek Manvy film, RS Designs Pizzlewell, and I Am the Ice Lord. Check out Grumpy Andrew's Haunted House. Check out Cat Watches Horror Movies. Check out Sarah of Horror. All amazing channels. Until next time, look after yourselves. Oh, and a big shout out to my lad, 'cause it's his birthday this week. Hope you're doing well, mate, and I'll see you in a few weeks for HorrorCon. Look after yourselves, look after one another, and I really hope I see you all soon.